Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over how to imbue rings in old school RuneScape on lower level accounts using the partner system within Nightmare Zone. This is going to earn about 150,000 to 200,000 points per hour on absolutely any account, regardless of what its level is, as well as regardless of what its combat stats are. Even if they're all 1, you will still be able to use these methods. The main reason is we are going to be using a method in which we last hit all of the enemy, and in doing so, while using a partner that damages it down, we will be able to claim every single kill and get about 90% of the points that we normally would have for getting the kill. We will also be able to take essentially no damage by using a combination of the rock cake combined with an absorption potion, meaning even if we had only 1 defense and 10 HP, we would still be able to survive throughout the Nightmare Zone, simply because we'd always take the same max hit of only 1 damage. So if you already are familiar with Nightmare Zone and a bunch of that, you can go to description and I will have a bunch of timestamps, but if you do not, I will be going over pretty much every single detail that you'll need to know about Nightmare Zone. So let's go first right into why would you even want to do Nightmare Zone in the first place. The main reason being is you can imbue rings within Nightmare Zone. Each one of these rings essentially double their effect whenever you get them imbued. The most common rings to go and imbue are things like the Berserker ring, which can be used in PKing to gain a lot of strength. It's also a pretty common ring to use while training strength, as it would give you the most amount of increase as far as EXP per hour when using so. Another pretty common thing to imbue is a Slayer helmet. This will allow you to do Slayer more efficiently by allowing you to have the Slayer helmet bonus damage also work on range. So really good if you just want to get this early to go on a Slayer grind. Other than that, accounts that maintain 1 attack commonly get the Warrior ring, Tyrannical ring, as well as the Treasonous ring. The main reason for this is if the 1 attack account plans on doing bossing, these rings can be quite handy in bossing, and any account that tends to get 75 HP plus and can afford it tend to get a Ring of Suffering, as it gives a really high durability on it as far as the amount of defenses. It doubles the defenses and would make it a lot easier to be able to survive a lot of instances. And as you can see over to the left, that is absolutely every single ring, and most of those can be achieved in about 4 hours using the method that we're going to be showing. As far as the requirements are as follows. You will need to be able to gain HP on your account. While I did say absolutely any account can use Nightmare Zone, I will not actually be going over in this video a strategy to do it on 10 HP. I will not be covering that specifically now. I will be covering it in a way that does give you a small amount of HP EXP. The main reason for this is it is a lot quicker, and about 99% of accounts are going to be allowed to gain HP EXP and will not have that restriction. So do keep that in mind. While it is possible, this guide will not be going over how to maintain 10 HP while getting Nightmare Zone points. As far as the second requirement, obviously it's just a standard Nightmare Zone requirement. If you've never played Nightmare Zone before, it does require having 5 bosses that are Nightmare Zone related. I will be going over these, though also in the description below will be a link to all of them that are currently within the game, so if you want to go luck, maybe based on your build, what you might want to do for it, but I will be going over a couple of them that you can do if you have absolutely no clue on which bosses to use in this video. As far as the next requirement, you will need a Dwarven Rock Cake. You get this from the Dwarven part of Recipe for Disaster. The main reason for this is you're going to need to have a way to reduce your HP to 1, and this is the easiest, most consistent way of constantly doing it, is simply using a rock cake. Other than that, you'll need either a willing friend that's willing to help you for several hours, or have a main account with at least 75 range. Preferably, it would be a range account. Also, while only 75 range is needed in order to use something like a blowpipe, it is recommended to have 90 plus range, 75 defense, and 70 plus prayer. While these are by no means required, it will speed up the process and make it possibly cheaper, as well as just more efficient as far as getting more points per hour. As far as next thing, let's go into the actual quest now. So if we go and bring this up, here are some of the more common lower level builds, or things that may end up picking up some imbues while they are a lower level to be able to utilize them. This of course isn't every build in the game, but it's general enough that most people would be able to find at least something based on this. So first off, under the tank we can see Lost City, One Small Favor, Depths of Despair, Shiloh Village, and then What Lies Below. Do keep in mind that What Lies Below does give defense EXP, so make sure that doesn't ruin your build. Every single one marked in red gives some kind of combat EXP in some way, shape, or form, farm, either from the quests that come prior to it or from the actual quest itself. So do be careful with each one in red, as it may end up ruining your build. For example, if you are a 1 defense peer that has 60 attack and you haven't done some of the particular quests there, you will have to go find alternative methods that are in white, or any of the other methods that might be on within other bosses within the game. So as far as the pure, you'd want to go Lost City, Mountain Daughter if you're allowed to gain prayer, if you aren't maintaining 1 prayer. Otherwise, if you are maintaining 1 prayer, one alternative could be to go use the Gnome Village boss that you end up getting from that. It's very similar to the Vampire Slayer one, and of course then Vampire Slayer, Fight Arena, and the Grand Tree. Next for Maulers. Maulers have very few options. It's pretty much the same setup that you use for the tank, with the one exception being Witch's House, which will end up giving you HP, EXP. This can be pretty bad though, because the Witch's House enemy that you end up getting from it, the boss, is horrible, absolutely horrible for gaining points, so you basically want to ignore it the entire time, so do be wary of that. It's definitely something you would want to try replacing if they ever added more bosses to the game, but currently there aren't really too many other options. If you're a higher level Mauler, you can do the Family Crest quest, and then you'll have a boss that you can use bolt spells on in order to go kill that out. It gives a lot of points, so it's a little bit awkward to have to fight it, since you do have to use those bolt spells on it, but that's really currently the only real viable option in place of that Witch's House. And other than that, for Zerkers tend to do most of their questing before they actually go and get along into all of their training. So if you happen to be doing all of these, definitely a great idea to include Mountain Daughter, Fight Arena, Grand Tree, and what lies below. Lunar Diplomacy is a pretty decent one too, though of course that has pretty high requirements, and if you're a lower level Zerker still going through all the things and you still want a Berserker ring, you're probably going to want to replace that with something more like Vampire Slayer or something else that's pretty small, that's really easy to defeat. So yep, that's pretty much all you need to know for these. Do be wary though, of course. Don't accidentally do a quest that might ruin your build. Be very careful in what quest you do choose, but any 5 that you think will be good for you is what you should end up doing. And of course, check the link in the description if you want to go find a full list of them, if you want to go do additional research for them in for yourself. But from what I can tell, these are among some of the best options for every single type. And in the tank in particular, I have tested it extensively, and I know for sure that one is definitely among one of the best combinations that you can create as far as any 5 of them. There are several different methods that can be used to get to the Nightmare Zone. Nightmare Zone itself is located just north of Yanil, as well as east of Castle Wars, but there are only a few very viable ways of getting there. The most commonly used one is to use the minigame teleport. To use this, you go under your quest, click on the red thing, and then click down to wherever you see Nightmare Zone, and then teleport. This will, of course, require you to have at least 5 bosses done, but as long as you do, you'll be able to use this once every 20 minutes. Unlike all the other teleports, it does have a slight delay, and as I mentioned, only once every 20 minutes. There are a couple other alternatives that we can be using though, for if we happen to be on cooldown. Let's say we forget something from the Grand Exchange, like maybe one of our gears, we ran out of something like as far as darts or just scales in general. So first one we could do is, if our house is set in Yanil, we can go and use a house teleport, and this will simply teleport to our house, just walk out or have it automatically so it comes out, and here you are. And from here you would just run east or take the shortcut, go east to the bank, and then boom, you're right there at the Nightmare Zone. If your house is not set to Yanil, you can go and use the Scroll of Redirection, which you can actually get if you have played any of the Nightmare Zone already. You can get that for, I believe, 775 points or somewhere around there. It does require 50 construction, as well as even having your house here in the first place, but then you can set it to Yanil, and it will do the exact same thing. And so even if your house is set to a different location, you'll still be able to teleport right here. Alternatively, the quickest way of actually getting here, though it does have pretty high requirements, is to go and use the Watchtower teleport by right-clicking on it and going to Yanil, or configuring it to always cast to Yanil. This requires the completion of the Watchtower quest, 53 magic, as well as the already hard diary. But if we do this, we will be teleported pretty much to the middle of Yanil, a little bit east from here, and as you can see, it's right over here. There was where we were earlier, and now we can simply just go east and go to the Nightmare Zone, which is just right up here, or go bank if we need to go bank, and that is pretty much how you can get to Nightmare Zone. The gear that is needed for the lower level account, whatever level it may end up being and whatever stats it may have, is basically only two things. You need a event RPG, which you can get in Draenor Village all the way from the toy shop over there. So if you go over to Draenor Village, either just from a home teleport or from a glory that teleports you over there, and then just go to the market, there'll be an event RPG that you can buy there. Just stock up on a few. I believe they're around 225 gold each or so. Very easy item to obtain. And then the only other thing you will end up needing is a halberd of any kind. As long as you can wield it, it will be fine. If you have a higher attack, you can use a better one. I'm just using iron because, of course, with one attack, that is the best one that you can wield. But depending on what your build is, you do basically just want to build the strongest possible defensiveness for melee that you can build while using a event RPG into a halberd. So with that being said, here is the defense pure version that you would need. This build would require 75 defense and 75 HP, though of course you can do some downgrades. It's just simply full Torax. It has an amulet of fury, though you could use an amulet of defense. Just a blessing, though we're not really using prayer at all. Any of the 99 skill capes, or you can simply use an obsidian cape if you don't have a 99 yet on the account. As I mentioned, weapon slot is event RPG and halberd. That is the only real mandatory part. We could wear literally nothing as long as we have those two weapons, and it'll be fine. Combat bracelet, because on a defense pier, that's the best you can really wear other than a regen bracelet, but because we're going to be using a rock cake, we don't want to use that. And a ring of suffering and imbued if you can get it imbued from doing this. But if you don't have that, you can easily just go and replace that out for either of the two defensive rings. The things that we're going to be facing do use mostly crush and slash. So both of these give a 4, or this one gives a 4 slash, and it's pretty cheap. Warrior ring's like 100k or so, and a tyrannical ring, while more expensive, gives a 4 crush bonus. So you could use either one of those two. So onto things like zerkers. You can go into a build like this, basically just pure full rune if you want to, obviously without the chest plate, since some zerkers may not want to get Dragon Slayer done due to all the XPs. But of course you can also wear the fighter hat and torso if you want to go out of your way to do so. And for the ring slot, since you might not have 75 HP yet, you can simply just go with a tyrannical ring as I mentioned, or the warrior ring, probably the tyrannical ring, since you actually will be able to obtain a little bit of EXP, and that will help you hit slightly more accuracy. As far as level 1 pures, you would pretty much just go for whatever the best legs you can do, as far as green d'hide or blue d'hide or even red d'hide if you happen to have enough range level for that yet, or simply just use iron plate legs if you haven't trained range yet. Either Varric Armor 1 or any of the Castle Wars armor would be sufficient. If you don't have any of those, you can use simply an iron plate body. Again, for the helm, you can either use an iron 4 helm, or if you have gotten out of your way to go get it, you can go use the bear helmet. They've recently did an update that even if you lose that bear helmet, you will be able to get it again. So definitely could go do that if you want to go and kill that off. As far as the boot slot, you can simply just go for climbing boots, iron boots, or simply just the fancy boots, because as I mentioned, the stats don't really matter too much. You can either go for mithril gloves or the combat bracelet if you don't want to go out of your way to go get mithril gloves. And again, just basically any ring will be sufficient. And as I mentioned, the main thing to this build, and the only thing that really matters, is this. You just need event RPG and the iron halberd. You can literally go in with absolutely nothing else, and you will still be perfectly fine. For the gear setup for either your main or your friend's account, we'll want to be as big of a range build as you can possibly do. The higher the range damage you can do, the better, and that is the setup you'll want to use for this strategy. It is going to be a couple different price points depending on which build you specifically want to do, as well as time to actually go and get all of the components of the build. First off, we're going to be starting with the best possible thing that you can use, and then go all the way down to some of the lesser ones. So right here, as you can see, as well as a few other people around us, Full Void is one of the best things that you can use within Nightmare Zone if you're just going to be praying the entire time, and that is the strategy that we're going to be going with. In this case, we are using Full Elite Void, though Full Normal Void is perfectly fine. The bonus of Full Elite will give slightly more damage, as well as 6 prayers, 3 on both the top and the bottom, so it is nice to have. That will require the Western Province's Hard Diary, though, to be able to unlock this. Also, the best range cape that you can possibly wear, the one from Dragon Slayer 2, is currently currently the best if you can get that. Otherwise, a accumulator is still a perfectly fine alternative. Any of the blessings, since we're not going to be using anything in the hour slot, we might as well put that in for one additional prayer bonus. They're pretty cheap, only cost a couple thousand, and it'll save us just a little bit on prayer. We're obviously going to be wanting to use a blowpipe. As far as the darts in it, that is on your own discretion, depending on how quickly you want to use it, though I would mainly only advise using mithril and adamant darts. Personally, I will be using adamant darts. As far as the necklace slot, you can either use a anguish, but if you can't afford an anguish, a fury is still perfectly fine. It'll also give a slightly higher prayer bonus, though it will not have as much damage on it. For the boot slot, Pegasus would be best, though as I cannot afford them, we are just going to be going with any of the god boots, and in this case the Zamorak god boots, though you can use any of them. For the ring, you also have two options, one which is more expensive and one that is slightly cheaper. Archer Ring Imbued is the slightly cheaper one, though if you want, you can also use the Ring of the Gods Imbued, though that is about 6 million more at this current moment in time, and its total setup is approximately 20 million. You will also want to have a Serpentine Helm switch for this. While you still don't get the bonus from the Void, you will be needing this in order to have a 100% chance to venom occasionally with the Volpipe. You'll be wanting to do this on a few specific enemies just to make sure that they are taking quick venom, and we still have high enough range bonus that even without the Void effect, we'll still be hitting them consistently enough. So let's go into the slightly cheaper build now. This would be a slightly more manageable build that is also relatively cheap for the most part. It costs approximately 10 million or so, with the most of its costs coming from the Blowpipe, the Fury, the Archer Ring, though you could just use a standard Explorer Ring if you want, just for the prayer bonus if you can't afford that, and of course the Serpentine Helm switch so that we can get those Venoms in at 100% chance. But as you can see here, much higher range bonus than the other one, though we do not have the extra damage bonus that the Void is giving. We also have one higher prayer if we are using this entire set compared to full Elite Void, though you could go into Bearer Gloves, and that will give you one higher range at the cost of your one prayer, though it is much easier simply to use one of the God Vambraces instead, and simply go with this. If you need to go super budgeted, you can go into a Carol's Crossbow. You don't necessarily have to Venom, though it does take a little bit longer, and you could easily get away with using a build like this. This is much cheaper, only costing about 200,000 for the entire build, not counting the ammunition itself, which will bring it up to about 500,000 to a million, depending on how much ammunition you're getting. Of course, if you are going with a build like this, you are going to want to go and try upgrading the head slot and the boot slot as your first two options, then probably go into the amulet slot as your upgrade, and then eventually the ring slot for your upgrade, which would end up unlocking something like this if you were to do exactly that, and it would still be a relatively lowish cost if you were to do this. Carol's Bow is about, I don't know the exact amount of damage compared to a blowpipe, but I believe it's about half-ish the damage or so per hour, maybe about only 1/3 lower, but it is half the cost compared to using a blowpipe, so some people might want to use this as an alternative. One other thing to note is that with the blowpipe, we would be constantly having to do it on either accurate or long range, but in the case of this Carol's Crossbow, due to its attack speed, we would need to use it on rapid if we're going to be using an event RPG on our other account, and that is essentially all the gear, or any of the gear setups that you would be needing to be able to do this. As far as the inventories that you will be needing for Nightmare Zone, the inventory that you will need for the lower level account can be seen over to the right, as well as the inventory that you'll need for the higher level account over towards the left, or your friend that you're bringing with you, though of course it is more convenient to use your own main account that you happen to have. But as far as all the items here, as you can see, here is a Iron Halberd, or the best halberd that you could possibly wield. If you are a defense pure or have 60 plus defense, you will want to bring super defense potions and 2 absorption potions. Otherwise, you're going to want to bring 6 absorption potions instead. If you are unaware of where to get absorption potions after you've played Nightmare Zone for a little bit, maybe just with some standard food, just go over to this little chest over here and click over to benefits. Here you can buy absorption potions. Just click buy X and buy however many you need. Every single one you buy, you're simply buying a single dose, so do make sure to buy enough to have at least 6 potions with you if you are only 1 defense, as you'll be needing those to not die within Nightmare Zone. Of course, with higher defense levels, you will be able to just substitute those for defense potions and save a little bit of points. As far as other items, we will need a rock cake. This you get from the Dwarven side of Recipe for Disaster. You'll be needing this to lower your HP to 1, so that whenever you get hit, you will only end up using one single poke of the Absorption Potion. Each Absorption Potion dose ends up giving you 50 protection, so that will be 50 hits per dose that you'll be able to protect, assuming you maintain 1 HP the entire time, which you should definitely be doing. Other than that, you'll want to be bringing a either prayer potions or super restore potions, either one you really want to bring. Really just depends on you. Prayer potions are slightly cheaper, but they also restore slightly less prayer, so do keep that in mind. As far as the main account, we're going to be wanting to bring a charged Serpentine Helm, so that will have a 100% chance to Venom with the use of the Blowpipe. You're also going to want to bring Overload potions, similar to the Vault thing. You just get them underneath the chest over there, so nothing really to worry about there. Pretty easy to get on a main account, since you can do a lot more damage that way. And the rest of the inventory is just prayer potions or super restores, and if you happen to have it, make sure to have a Holy Wrench, as that will make both of those potions give you slightly more prayer per dose. The only other thing to mention is underneath the options menu here, do make sure on both accounts that you have shift click option available, as well as the left click option available. Whenever you go and click, this will allow you to hit everything immediately when you go and click on them, and you're going to be needing to shift click all of these potions to your main account, so you're definitely going to need to have this enabled on the lower level account in order to give all the supplies over. Also, I didn't really mention, but when you are at 2 HP, you can't click the rock cake to go down to 1 for whatever reason. You do have to right click it and then click guzzle, and then it will go down to 1 HP. Now that both accounts are geared up, we are pretty much ready to go. So, to get into Nightmare Zone, make sure that this coffer over here on both accounts is stocked with gold. I normally put about 500,000 here, so I don't have to keep constantly restocking it over and over again. It does require 26,000 every single time per account whenever you end up entering this area, so make sure to put this in advance, otherwise it'll take up one of your inventory spaces. That could be something like a prayer potion. Then, once you have stocked up your gold into this coffer on both of the accounts, go over to this guy over here, Dominic Onion. It's this little floating guy, and just click Dream on him. This will now bring up a option menu. You can, if you've already set it up before, click on Customizable Rumble Hard. But if you haven't already set this up, if this is your first time, click on Rumble, then click on Hard, Customizable. And there you go. He'll ask you if do you want to spend 26,000 gold, so on and so forth. If you already have the money in the coffer, you'll just take it out and you just click yes. And now you'll be able to go and enter into this thing by clicking drink. But before you do, you'll notice a Rumble Party kind of interface over here. You can go and now bring over your other account or your friend into this area, and then right click on them. Right click on them and then click on invite. This will then send a invite over to the other account, and they can choose to accept it. It will also cost them 26,000 gold. And now that both of you, as you can see, are in the same party, you can now click drink onto the vial and get yourself into the instance. Do keep in mind, if you want to go get all of your potions, your absorptions are over here, and your overloads are right next to that, right over here, if you still need to go and stock up on them after you've bought in them. And yeah, let's just click drink and get right into it. Your other account or your friend will be prompted with the notification as soon as you click accept on here. You will, of course, want to bring the 5 bosses that I have mentioned earlier into the instance. Whatever 5 will be work for you. Do feel free to experiment with your own based on your build or what you'll want to actually bring in. I've only extensively tested it for defense spears, and from what I can tell, these are the best 5. Sand Snake, King Ronald, Slaglyph, this, I have no clue how to pronounce that, from Shiloh Village, and the Tree Spirit thingy. So this is what I'll be going with. There are some things that could definitely be replaced, like I would definitely want to replace out Shiloh Village if we ever get another boss. But anyways, let's just get right into the instance then, and click accept. This will now prompt your friend or your other account with a screen, and then you just click enter the dream, and it'll just charge it. Now we're going to want to go and rush our way over to the corner and set both these up. A random screen will come up that kind of just shows you what bosses will be available. So now we're going to want to bring our lower level account all the way to the corner, and then our other account right here. Let's go bring up the other little interface for it, as well as let's start the little timer as well, just for the sake of knowing how much time has gone by, so that we can time it for just to show the rate that we get per hour. Of course, I will not be showing the entire thing, but anyways, let's go and get the Serpentine Helm onto our main account, as well as use a overload. You would then want to go and set up your quick prayers if they are not already set up, and then set them up accordingly with the protect from melee, as well as the other little 10% 10% additional to range so that you can do slightly more damage. When first starting off, you're going to want to also make sure you rock cake down your other accounts and then guzzle so it goes down to 1, drink a defense if you're bringing it, and drink a absorption or 2 just so you don't get hit. Now as you can see, the 2 spotted or the 2 sized or bigger enemies will now protect against every single one of your attacks onto your lower level account. What you're going to want to do now is use your Serpentine Helm to one hit every single thing that can be venomed. As far as which ones can be venomed, do double check that because it can change based on whatever bosses. And now you basically just keep continuing to kill them. So what you're going to want to do here, why on earth did we bring a event RPG? You may notice right now I'm using long range. You will need to use a long range or accurate. Do not use rapid. The reason for this is that on long range or rapid, blowpipe has the exact same let's see, get that hit in there, and there we go, we got them both at the same time, but it has the exact same attack rate, as you can see, as the event RPG, and now you can see we kind of got this going now, and we're both hitting at the exact same time, with the lower level account having the higher splat. This will give it PID, and will allow us to get the points every single time. If you look over at the points right now, you may notice that, for whatever reason, our lower level account has 1,000 points, but our higher level account only has 147. The reason for this is because they both got killed at the exact same tick, and for whatever reason it prioritized our other account pretty much as getting it. So basically, just keep continuing this. Let me just go and remove this out so you can see what we're actually aiming at. Make sure always, as I mentioned, keep serpentining these things, and then after you've serpentined all the 2 spots, all the 2 sized or bigger, go try and getting rid of these single ones that keep hitting you for a little bit of damage. Make sure to always keep guzzling down, and just make sure to get aligned on the hit right there. I seem to have a little bit of a delay here while trying to record it, but you normally get pretty used to getting them at the exact same time on this exact same hit right there. It takes a little bit of time to kind of learn like the exact timing of it. You can base it either on the sound, off the EXP drop, or just simply on the animation itself, and you can normally get it just about every single time to be at the exact same time, as you can see right there. And yeah, this will, as you can see, it's giving a almost 100% of the points, about 90 or so percent, over to our lower level account. As you can see, even at this point, we're only 370 points on our main account that's doing 99% of the damage, maybe even 100% in some of these instances. Yet on our lower level account, we will keep getting essentially the full amount of points, and you just keep repeating this for the entire thing until you have gotten all the points that you need. So yep, that is basically it. I'll be back once we reach the 1 hour mark to show how many points we have gotten in an hour. Here we are approaching about the 1 hour mark. As you can see over to our lower level account, we're about at 175,000 points for the hour. I tend to average more towards about 160, though this hour appears to be just slightly better than usual. If you're on a pure account that can actually do damage, you could probably expect more towards about 200,000 or so, because obviously with only 1 all stats as combat, like 1 attack, 1 strength, we're not really doing much damage. But anyways, let's go, and as you can see here, we're using our halberd. The main thing that you use the halberd for is when they're actually all venomed and everything. You can just go and kill them out that way. Of course, you're eventually going to need to go and drop a bunch of potions to your other account. To do this, all you're going to need to do is, well, for one, let's go get this down since we showed that, and go just underneath your other character, throw just a bunch of these down, and however many you really need, just get them all down there. And now you're going to want, you might notice here, sometimes it'll go and do exactly that. You broke the wall of your other character, so whenever this does occur, just make sure to move both of your characters away, guzzle the thing so you don't take as much damage. Make sure you run far enough away so that you can go reset it back up, and then go get your other account back into the corner, and then simply go move your lower level account back there as well, and this will reset everything. It's also a good way to go and shuffle them all. Oops, I did it 1 off, but put it right there where the potions are, and there you go, you have reset it. So, yep, that's pretty much everything with this. Now we just continue exactly what we just did for the entirety of the next hour, or until we run out of inventory, and then we just get a bunch of points that we can then claim for ring imbues. Okay, and here we are at the end of our inventory. As you can see, we have ran out of overload potions, so we're pretty much going to want to stop now, because without overloads, it's not really that efficient to be doing this. To exit from this area, you will find a little jar all the way over here. They can go and exit. As you can see, we have 415,000 on one, and then 74,000 on the other, which is a pretty decent amount of points. That comes out to about 160,000 per hour, a little bit higher than that. But as you can see, you could bring a little bit more overloads if you have a higher prayer, though if you had a lower prayer like 70 or even lower than that, you probably would have ran out of the prayer potions before you actually ran out of the overloads themselves. And as you can see, we ended up still having a little bit of option left at the end of there, and we still had an entire potion that we didn't use, though do keep in mind with 1 defense, you're probably going to go through almost all of these due to taking quite a bit more damage. But if you stay behind, stay a little bit safe with the halberd, you probably won't end up using up too many of them. And now, of course, for the main reason you would even bother doing this in the first place, after you have accumulated all of your points, go over to the reward chest over here, and you will be able to go and imbue your rings. If you click under upgrades, you will see every single imbue that you can do based on the items that you currently have within your inventory. Every single imbue on all of the basic rings will essentially just double the stats. So if we go over here and check at the warrior ring, you can see that we're getting a 4 slash and a 4 slash offensive and a 4 slash defensive bonus. But if we go take it off and now go and upgrade it and imbue it, it will now be a 8 and 8. So you see if we go put it on, we'll see now a 8 bonus and another 8 bonus on it. As far as the rings themselves, of course, as far as defense pures, treasonous ring and ring of suffering tend to be the best. Treasonous ring so you can get poisons and venoms down, and the ring of suffering so that you can go and get recoil and just higher defenses overall. Other than that, the main ring most people go for is the berserker ring. The reason for berserker ring is it gives a strength bonus, and you'd be able to get a +8 strength bonus as well as a +8 crush bonus. Pretty good on OB Mauls against other OB Maulers. If you're like 3-iteming with OB Maul, Obsidian Necklace, and this ring, ends up working out quite nicely. And let me just go get my Tyrannical ring, and yes, that is pretty much everything we need then. Go get our last upgrade. I'm not going to bother with the helm because it only gives a little bit more magic, and I'm never using range or magic on this account, so not really going to help much. But anyways, that'll wrap it up for this video. If you still have any other questions about Nightmare Zone, definitely feel free to leave it below. Hope this was helpful, and I will see you all later. Goodbye, everyone!